The pain started 3 blocks from home. Elara Hayes pressed a hand against her ribs, trying to breathe through the sudden pressure building beneath her sternum. The streetlights above her flickered in rhythm with her heartbeat, casting strange shadows across the empty sidewalk. She had left Gregory's house after another argument, needing air, needing space from his constant criticism, and the way he watched her lately with something close to fear. The blood moon hung heavy and red in the October sky. Elara had seen the news reports about the rare lunar event, astronomers calling it a once-in-a-decade phenomenon. She had thought it beautiful from her bedroom window. Now, standing beneath its crimson glow, she felt something fundamental shifting inside her body. Another wave of pain doubled her over. Her skin felt too tight, her bones aching like they wanted to break free. Elara stumbled forward, not sure where she was going, only knowing she could not stop moving. The residential streets gave way to the entrance of Crescent Park, and she pushed through the iron gates without thinking. The park should have been empty at this hour. Instead, as Elara's vision blurred and refocused, she saw figures throughout the clearing ahead. Dozens of them, maybe more, standing in loose groups beneath the trees. The moonlight painted them in shades of red and silver. Some turned to look at her, and their eyes reflected the light in a way that human eyes should not. It took Elara a heartbeat too long to notice what else was wrong. The air at the edge of the clearing shimmered faintly, as if the world had been stretched thin, hiding what stood inside from anyone passing on the streets beyond. The city noise dulled the deeper she stumbled into the park, the sound fading like she had stepped behind glass. Elara tried to back away, but her legs would not cooperate. The pain spiked again, sharper this time, and she heard herself cry out. Her knees buckled. The ground rushed up to meet her. She never hit it. Strong arms caught her mid-fall, pulling her against a solid chest. Elara's vision swam, but she registered details through the haze of pain. The man who held her was tall, his grip steady and sure. His scent surrounded her, pine and smoke and something wild she had no name for. When she managed to look up at his face, she found amber eyes studying her with an intensity that should have frightened her. "Breathe," he said, and his voice carried a command that her body obeyed before her mind could question it. The pain receded slightly. Elara gasped, pulling air into her lungs. The man shifted his hold, one arm beneath her knees, carrying her weight as though she massed nothing at all. Around them, the gathered figures moved closer, their attention fixed on her with open curiosity. Dominic, another man, appeared at his side, younger, with blonde hair and sharp blue eyes. "You cannot just take her. Protocol requires—" "I know what protocol requires, Marcus." The man holding her, Dominic, did not look away from Elara's face. "Call Dr. Reeves. Tell her to meet us at my residence immediately. The council will have questions. Then they can ask them later." Dominic moved through the crowd with purpose, and the gathered figures parted for him without hesitation. Elara tried to speak, to ask what was happening, but another surge of pain stole her words. Her hands clutched at Dominic's shirt, her vision going dark at the edges. "Stay with me," he said quietly. "The worst will pass soon." Elara wanted to argue that she did not understand, that nothing about this made sense, but consciousness slipped away before she could form the words. She woke to soft sheets and morning light filtering through floor-to-ceiling windows. For a disoriented moment, Elara thought she had dreamed everything. The pain, the park, the impossible eyes. Then she sat up and saw the room around her. This was not her small bedroom in Gregory's house. The space was enormous, decorated in shades of gray and deep blue, with furniture that looked both modern and expensive. Through the windows she could see a city skyline she recognized as downtown, though the view was from higher than any building she had been in before. The door opened, and the man from the park entered carrying a tray. In daylight, Elara could see him more clearly. He looked to be in his early 30s, black hair cut short, strong features, and those same unsettling amber eyes. He wore dark jeans and a simple gray shirt, but he moved with a confidence that suggested he was accustomed to authority. "You are awake," he said, setting the tray on the bedside table. "How do you feel?" "Confused." Elara's voice came out rough. "Where am I? Who are you?" "My name is Dominic Thorne." You are in my home." He pulled a chair closer to the bed and sat, maintaining a careful distance. "Do you remember what happened last night?" "I remember pain." "And the park?" Elara wrapped her arms around herself. "There were people. Your eyes—" She trailed off, not sure how to finish that sentence. "We're not human," Dominic finished for her. "Neither are you." Elara stared at him. "That is not funny. I am not joking." He leaned forward slightly, his expression serious. "What you experienced last night was the beginning of your first shift. Your body was trying to change into its true form. It should have happened years ago, but something prevented it." "This is insane." Elara stood, needing to move, to put space between herself and this stranger's impossible claims. "I need to leave. I need to call—" "Gregory Hayes?" Dominic's tone cooled. "The man you have lived with for how many years? Did he ever explain why he kept certain objects in your room? Small things, carved with symbols, hidden where you would not notice them?" Elara froze. She had found those objects once, when she was 14, tucked behind her dresser. Gregory had been furious when she asked about them, and she had learned not to mention them again. "How do you know about those?" "Because they are suppression artifacts, designed to prevent a shifter from accessing their true nature." Dominic stood as well, but he did not move closer. "Someone wanted to keep you dormant. The blood moon was powerful enough to begin breaking through that suppression, but your body is not prepared for the change. That is why the pain was so severe." "Shifter," Elara repeated. "You expect me to believe I am some kind of werewolf? Look at your hands." Elara glanced down and went still. Her nails had changed, longer and darker than they had been, almost claw-like. When she tried to speak, she felt something different about her teeth, canines sharper than they should be. She backed against the window, her heart racing. "What is happening to me?" "Your body is adjusting. The changes will stabilize once you complete your first full shift. But that process takes time and guidance." Dominic's voice gentled slightly. "I know this is difficult to accept. I am not asking you to trust me immediately, but I am asking you to stay here, where I can help you through this transition safely." The door opened again, and Marcus entered with an older woman in a white coat. "Dr. Reeves is here." The doctor approached with calm efficiency, introducing herself as she began a quick examination. She checked Elara's eyes, her pulse, asked questions about the pain and when it had started. Through it all, Elara felt like she was watching herself from a distance, unable to fully process what was happening. "Her vitals are stable," Dr. Reeves said finally, turning to Dominic. "But the suppression damage is significant. Whoever placed those artifacts knew what they were doing. Her wolf was bound for at least a decade, maybe longer. Can you help her? I can monitor her condition and provide support during the shifts. But the transition itself," the doctor shook her head, "that is something she will have to experience. It will not be easy." After Dr. Reeves left, Marcus remained, studying Elara with open curiosity. "How old were you when Gregory Hayes took you in?" 7. Elara's voice sounded hollow even to her own ears. "My parents died in an accident. He was a distant relative. The only family willing to take me. That was not an accident." Marcus pulled out a tablet, scrolling through information. "I have been looking into your background since last night. Your biological parents were killed 17 years ago. The official human report lists it as a home invasion, but there are other records. Shifter records. They were murdered." The room tilted. Elara sat down hard on the edge of the bed. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve the truth." Dominic's expression had hardened. "And because whoever killed your parents likely arranged for you to be placed with Gregory Hayes. Those suppression artifacts do not appear by accident. Someone wanted you hidden, your nature bound, unable to access your heritage. But why? That is what we need to find out." Over the next 2 days, Elara remained in Dominic's penthouse, trying to reconcile everything she had learned with the life she thought she had known. Marcus continued his investigation, unearthing details about her parents that both fascinated and frightened her. They had been part of the shifter community, well respected, connected to an old bloodline whose name Marcus promised to confirm soon. Dominic proved patient with her questions, explaining the basics of shifter society, the pack structures, the laws that governed their hidden world. He was, she learned, not just any shifter, but the Alpha King, the highest authority among their kind. The gathering in the park had been a formal event, pack leaders from across the region coming to witness the blood moon together. "Why did you help me?" Elara asked on the second evening, watching city lights flicker to life beyond the windows. "You did not know me. You broke your own protocols." Dominic was quiet for a moment. "I recognized your scent. Beneath the suppression, beneath the human life you had been living, I could sense what you truly were. Leaving you there, letting you face that transformation alone." He shook his head. "That was not something I could do." On the third day, Vivian Thorne arrived. She was Dominic's younger sister, and she studied Elara with the same intense amber eyes her brother had. "So you are the mystery shifter everyone is talking about." "I am not trying to cause trouble," Elara said. "Too late for that." But Vivian smiled as she said it. "Half the council wants to know why Dominic broke protocol for you. The other half is curious about who you really are. A bloodline powerful enough to require that level of suppression. That is significant. I am just me. I have been human my whole life. You have been pretending to be human. There is a difference." Vivian sat across from her. "The question is, who were you before Gregory Hayes and those artifacts stole that from you?" That evening, as the sun set and the pain began building again in Elara's chest, Dominic guided her to a secured room deeper in the penthouse. "Your body is going to try to shift again tonight. I will be here to help you through it." The transformation, when it came, was agony. Elara felt her bones restructuring, her muscles tearing and reforming, her senses exploding into overwhelming intensity. Dominic's voice anchored her through the worst of it, steady and calm, telling her to breathe, to let her body do what it needed to do. When the pain finally receded, Elara found herself on the floor, exhausted and shaking. Dominic handed her a robe, turning away to give her privacy as she pulled it on with trembling hands. Across the room, a full-length mirror reflected her image back at her, for just a moment, before her body fully returned to human form. Elara saw the wolf looking back at her through the glass. Silver-gray fur, green eyes that glowed in the dim light, powerful and graceful, and absolutely nothing like the weak human girl she had always believed herself to be. She stared at the reflection, and the wolf stared back, and Elara understood with absolute certainty that her old life was over. Whatever came next, whoever she had been before Gregory Hayes and his suppression artifacts, that truth was about to surface, and nothing would ever be the same again. 2 weeks after her first transformation, Elara stood in the training room on the lower level of Dominic's building, her body aching from another painful shift. The transitions were getting easier, but each one still felt like her skeleton was being rearranged from the inside out. "Again," Dominic said from across the padded floor. Elara glared at him. "I just shifted twice. I need a break. Your body needs to learn efficiency. Right now, each transformation drains you because you are fighting it." He crossed his arms. "One more time. Focus on letting the change flow instead of resisting." She wanted to argue, but the determined set of his jaw told her it would be pointless. Elara closed her eyes, reaching for that wild presence she could now feel coiled inside her chest. The wolf rose to meet her awareness, and this time, she tried not to brace against the pain. The shift came faster than before. When Elara opened her eyes again, she was looking at the world from a lower vantage point, her vision sharper, sense flooding her senses in overwhelming detail. Her silver-gray fur caught the overhead lights. "Better?" Dominic said, and she heard approval in his tone. "Much better." Marcus entered the training room carrying files, his expression troubled. "We need to talk. I finished tracing the Hayes background." Elara shifted back, accepting the clothes Vivian handed her, and dressing quickly behind a privacy screen. When she emerged, Marcus had spread documents across a table, his tablet displaying financial records. "Your biological parents were Nathan and Isabel Silvercrest," Marcus began. "They were killed 17 years ago in what human authorities recorded as a home invasion. But shifter witnesses reported it differently. It was a targeted assassination." Rogues broke into their home and executed them. The names meant nothing to Elara, but hearing them spoken aloud created a hollow ache in her chest. Why would someone kill them? I am still determining that. But here is what concerns me more. Marcus pulled up banking records. After your parents died, you were placed with Gregory Hayes within a month. He received quarterly payments from an offshore account, $50,000 4 times a year for 17 years. Dominic leaned over the table, studying the figures. Someone paid him over $3 million to keep her suppressed. Marcus corrected. I traced the suppression artifacts back to a black market dealer who specializes in binding magic. Those objects cost a fortune and require specific knowledge to use properly. Gregory Hayes was not acting alone. A knock on the door interrupted them. One of the building's security guards entered, looking uncomfortable. Sir, there is a man in the lobby demanding to see Elara Hayes. He says he is her legal guardian. Gregory Hayes. Elara's stomach dropped. How did he know I was here? That is an excellent question. Dominic's expression hardened. Bring him up. Let us hear what he has to say. 10 minutes later, Gregory Hayes stood in the penthouse living room, his familiar face lined with anger and something that looked almost like panic. He was a thin man in his mid-50s, gray hair receding, his clothes rumpled like he had dressed in a hurry. Elara, we are leaving, he said without preamble. Whatever these people have told you, it is nonsense. You belong at home. Home? Elara's voice came out steadier than she felt. You mean the place where you kept magical artifacts hidden to prevent me from knowing what I really am? Gregory's face paled. I do not know what you are talking about. The suppression objects behind my dresser. The ones you were paid millions of dollars to maintain. Marcus stepped forward, holding up printed bank statements. We have the financial records, Mr. Hayes. We know someone has been funding you for 17 years. You have no right to investigate my private affairs. I have every right when those affairs involve conspiracy and the use of prohibited magic. Dominic moved to stand beside Elara, his presence solid and reassuring. Elara is under my protection now. She is not going anywhere with you. She is a human girl who needs medical help, not whatever delusion you are filling her head with. But Gregory's voice shook, and his eyes kept darting to the door as if calculating his chances of escape. I am a shifter, Elara said quietly. You know that. You have always known that. Who paid you to keep me dormant? I saved you. Gregory's composure cracked. After your parents were killed, I took you in. I fed you, clothed you, gave you a home, and took money to make sure I never discovered the truth about myself. The anger surprised Elara with its intensity. Did you ever care about me at all? Or was I just a paycheck? Gregory opened his mouth, closed it, then seemed to deflate. You do not understand. The people who paid me, they are powerful. If I had refused, if I had let you transform naturally, they would have killed us both. Who are they? Dominic demanded. I do not know names. I received instructions through encrypted messages. Money through untraceable transfers. They said they were protecting you, keeping you safe from enemies who would use your bloodline against you. My bloodline? Elara felt Dominic go still beside her. What do you know about my bloodline? Only that it mattered, that your parents died because of who they were, what legacy they carried. Gregory looked at her with something that might have been genuine regret. I was told that suppressing your nature was the only way to keep you alive. I believed them. Marcus moved to the door, blocking Gregory's exit. 2 security personnel entered, their presence making it clear this was no longer a conversation Gregory could walk away from. You will be detained pending a formal investigation. Use of suppression magic on a minor is illegal under shifter law. Wait! Gregory's panic returned. I was trying to protect her. Then you should have brought her to the proper authorities instead of taking money to hide her. Dominic's voice carried absolute finality. Take him to the holding cells. Make sure he is comfortable but secured. As the guards escorted Gregory out, he called back to Elara. I am sorry. I know you will not believe that. But it is true. I did care, in my way. Elara said nothing, watching him disappear through the door. She felt numb, the revelation that her entire childhood had been built on lies settling over her in suffocating weight. "Are you all right?" Vivian asked gently. "I do not know what I am." That night, the attack came without warning. Elara had gone to bed early, exhausted from the emotional turmoil of confronting Gregory. She woke to the sound of breaking glass and alarms blaring throughout the building. Dominic burst into her room, already half-shifted, his eyes glowing amber. "Stay behind me." They moved into the hallway, where Marcus and Vivian were already engaged in combat with intruders. Elara saw them clearly now, rogues in human form but with feral eyes and movements too fast to be normal. They were not trying to kill. They were trying to capture, reaching for her with hands that sprouted claws. One of them broke through the defensive line. Dominic intercepted, slamming the rogue into the wall with brutal efficiency. But two more came from the opposite direction, moving in coordinated attack patterns that suggested training. Elara felt her wolf surge forward in response to the danger. She shifted without thinking, her body completing the transformation in seconds. She lunged at the nearest rogue, teeth finding purchase in his shoulder, tasting blood, and feeling savage satisfaction when he screamed. But there were too many. Even with Dominic, Marcus, and Vivian fighting alongside her, the rogues kept coming, wave after wave. One of them managed to grab Elara by the scruff, yanking her backward. She yelped, thrashing, and saw Dominic turn toward her with fury blazing in his eyes. He did not see the rogue behind him, claws extended, aiming for his throat. Something inside Elara snapped. Terror flooded through her, raw and absolute, and with it came power she had never felt before. Energy exploded outward from her body in a concussive wave, silver-blue light that threw every rogue in the hallway against the walls with bone-breaking force. The rogue holding her released his grip, and she fell to the floor, her shift reversing involuntarily. The light faded. Elara gasped, her body shaking with exhaustion. Around her, the rogues lay unconscious or groaning in pain. Dominic stood frozen, staring at her with an expression she could not read. "What was that?" Marcus breathed. "Elemental magic." Vivian knelt beside Elara, helping her sit up. "I have only read about it in old bloodline histories. It is incredibly rare." Dominic crossed to Elara, crouching down to her level. "You saved my life. I did not mean to, She trailed off, not sure how to explain the instinctive need to protect him that had overridden everything else. "I saw him about to hurt you, and I could not let that happen." Something flickered in his amber eyes, there and gone too quickly for her to identify. He helped her to her feet, his hands steady on her arms. "Come on. We need to secure the building and figure out how they found us." The rogues, those who survived, were taken into custody. Under interrogation, they revealed little except that they had been hired to retrieve Elara and deliver her to an unnamed contact. The attack had been coordinated, planned, which meant someone with resources and information was actively hunting her. They knew she was here, Marcus said as they reviewed security footage. They knew exactly which floor, which room. "We have a leak somewhere." Over the following days, Elara trained harder, pushing herself to understand the elemental abilities that had manifested during the attack. Vivian worked with her, teaching her shifter history and the old bloodline families that had once held power in their world. "Silvercrest," Vivian said during one lesson, pulling up genealogical records on her tablet. "Your family was one of the founding lines. They held territory across the eastern seaboard for generations. The bloodline was known for producing exceptionally powerful alphas and rare magical talents." "Was?" Elara noticed the past tense. "The line was thought to be extinct. Your parents were the last known Silvercrests, and when they died," Vivian looked up from the tablet, "you are the only one left." That night, Elara dreamed. But these were not normal dreams. She saw a house, warm and filled with light, heard laughter that felt familiar even though she had no conscious memory of it. A woman with auburn hair smiled at her, green eyes full of love. A man with silver-gray hair lifted her onto his shoulders. "Our little wolf," her mother's voice said. "You will do such amazing things." The dream shifted, turned dark. The same house, but now smoke filled the air, and there was screaming. Elara tried to run toward the sound, but her child's legs would not move fast enough. She saw figures in the hallway, their faces hidden in shadow, and then she woke gasping, tears streaming down her face. The clock read 3 in the morning. Elara pulled her knees to her chest, trying to quiet her breathing before the panic attack fully took hold. A knock at the door made her flinch. "Elara?" Dominic's voice quiet but concerned. "I heard you cry out." "I am fine." The door opened anyway. Dominic stood in the threshold, wearing sleep pants and nothing else, his expression gentle. "You are crying. That is not fine. It was just a dream. About your parents. It was not a question." He moved into the room, sitting on the edge of her bed at a respectful distance. "I lost my parents young as well. The dreams are the worst part. Knowing you should remember them better. But all you have are fragments." Elara wiped at her face. "I saw them. In the dream, they felt real. They probably were real. Memories surfacing now that the suppression is broken." Dominic's voice was soft in the darkness. "Your mind is giving back what was taken from you. I do not know if I want it back. If they all end with," she could not finish the sentence, "then you wake me up. And we talk until the fear passes." He met her eyes. "You do not have to face this alone, Elara. Not anymore." Something warm unfurled in her chest. A connection she did not fully understand but could not deny. She had felt it during the attack, when terror for his safety had unlocked power she did not know she possessed. She felt it now, sitting in the quiet dark with him, the way his presence steadied something fundamental inside her. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything you have done. You do not need to thank me." Dominic stood, moving toward the door. "Try to get some rest. Tomorrow, Marcus wants to show you what else he found in Gregory's documents." After he left, Elara lay back down. But sleep did not come easily. She stared at the ceiling, thinking about bloodlines and suppression, and the parents she could barely remember, thinking about amber eyes and the strange certainty that her life had irrevocably tangled with Dominic Thorne's the moment he caught her during the blood moon. Whatever was coming, whoever had killed her parents and paid to keep her hidden, Elara knew the truth was finally beginning to surface, and she was not the weak, ignorant human girl anymore. She was Silvercrest, the last of her line, and she was done hiding. A month into her new life, Elara had learned to fight. Vivian proved to be a demanding instructor, running her through combat drills every morning until sweat soaked through her training clothes, and her muscles screamed for rest. They worked in both human and wolf forms, Vivian teaching her how to use her smaller size as an advantage, how to read an opponent's movements, how to turn defense into offense in the span of a heartbeat. "You rely too much on your elemental abilities," Vivian said, circling her on the training mat. "What happens when you are too exhausted to access them?" "I use my teeth?" Elara shot back, breathing hard. "Show me." Vivian attacked without further warning, and Elara barely managed to dodge. They moved through a series of exchanges, Vivian pressing her harder each time, until Elara finally saw an opening and swept her opponent's legs. Vivian hit the mat with a grunt, then grinned up at her. "Better. You are learning." In the afternoons, Elara worked on controlling the elemental magic that had saved Dominic during the rogue attack. The power felt vast and unpredictable, surging through her in response to emotion, rather than conscious command. She practiced calling it forth deliberately, shaping it, learning to summon the silver-blue energy without letting it consume her. "Your bloodline carried this gift for generations," Vivian explained during one session. "Elemental magic tied to the wolf spirit. It is exceptionally rare, even among the old families. Most shifters have enhanced strength and speed. But true magic?" She shook her head. "That belongs to the ancient lines." Marcus spent those weeks buried in financial records, tracing the payments made to Gregory Hayes through layers of shell corporations and offshore accounts. Elara watched him work, fascinated by the way he pieced together fragments of information into coherent patterns. "Found something," Marcus announced one evening, pulling up data on the large screen in Dominic's office. "The money trail leads to two primary sources. The first is a councilman named Edmund Graves. He has been moving funds through various channels for years." Dominic straightened from where he had been reviewing reports. "Edmund has served on the council for 2 decades. He holds significant influence, which makes this worse." Marcus brought up a second set of records. "The other account belongs to Sienna Cross. She is a rogue alpha, Operates outside pack law. Known for taking mercenary contracts. And look at this. He highlighted transaction dates. Every payment to Gregory Hayes corresponds with a payment from Edmund to Sienna. They have been working together. To do what? Elara asked, though dread was already forming in her stomach. To eliminate every surviving member of the Silvercrest bloodline. Marcus pulled up genealogical records marked with red annotations. I cross-referenced deaths in the shifter community over the past 20 years. 17 individuals with Silvercrest blood died under suspicious circumstances. Home invasions, car accidents, random attacks, all made to look unconnected. But the pattern is clear once you know to look for it. Elara stared at the names on the screen, each one representing a life cut short. Why would Edmund want my family dead? Political power, Dominic said quietly. The Silvercrest held significant territory and influence before the systematic killings began. With them gone, Edmund faced less opposition to his agenda. He has been consolidating power for years, positioning himself as the alternative voice to my authority. And Sienna carried out the executions. Marcus brought up a final document, a scanned report from 17 years ago, including your parents. There were 3 witnesses who reported seeing a red-haired female shifter leaving your childhood home the night of the murders. That description matches Sienna Cross. The room tilted. Elara gripped the edge of the desk, trying to process the information. The woman who had killed her parents, who had stolen her family and her heritage, had a name now. A face. Sienna Cross. We have to present this to the council, Dominic said. Edmund cannot be allowed to continue serving if he orchestrated genocide. The evidence is digital, Marcus cautioned. Without physical proof or witness testimony, Edmund can claim the records were falsified. We need more. The council meeting was held 3 days later in a formal chamber downtown, a space reserved for official shifter business. Elara attended as Dominic's guest, sitting in the observation section while he took his place at the head of a massive circular table. 12 council members occupied seats around the perimeter, Edmund Graves among them. He was a distinguished-looking man in his 60s, silver hair perfectly styled, wearing an expensive suit. His eyes were a cold brown, and when they swept across the room and landed on Elara, she felt the weight of his assessment. We have called this session to address serious allegations, Dominic began, his voice carrying absolute authority. Evidence has come to light suggesting that members of this council may be involved in criminal conspiracy. Marcus presented the financial records, walking the council through the trail of payments, the connections between Edmund, Sienna Cross, and the systematic elimination of Silvercrest descendants. Several council members leaned forward, studying the data with growing concern. Others looked skeptical. When Marcus finished, Edmund rose smoothly from his seat. These are interesting accusations, Alpha King. But digital records can be manipulated. Without physical evidence or witness testimony, this amounts to speculation. The pattern is clear, Dominic countered. 17 deaths over 20 years, all connected to one bloodline, all corresponding with payments from your accounts. My accounts? Edmund's expression remained calm. I oversee numerous business ventures. Money flows through various channels for legitimate purposes. If someone accessed those accounts to fund illegal activities, that is identity theft, not conspiracy. He turned to address the council. I have served this body faithfully for 2 decades. Now I am being accused based on circumstantial evidence presented by an Alpha King who has shown extremely questionable judgment recently. Explain that statement. Dominic's voice went cold. You violated protocol to protect a girl you had never met. You have kept her in your private residence for over a month. You broke established procedures to detain Gregory Hayes without council approval. Edmund gestured toward Elara. Everyone in this room can see that your judgment has been compromised by personal attachment to this Silvercrest survivor. How convenient that she appears now, with accusations against your political opposition. Several council members exchanged glances. Elara felt heat rise in her face, anger and humiliation mixing together. Elara Hayes had her nature suppressed for 17 years through illegal magic, Dominic said. She nearly died during her awakening. I acted to save her life. Or you acted to acquire a powerful asset. Edmund's tone remained reasonable, which made his words more damaging. A Silvercrest with elemental abilities. bound to you through gratitude and dependence. The political advantages are obvious. That is not what happened. Elara found herself standing, speaking before she consciously decided to. He saved my life when he had no reason to. And these accusations against you are based on evidence, not politics. Evidence that cannot be verified. Edmund turned his attention fully to her, and his gaze felt like ice. Tell me, Miss Hayes, do you have any memory of your parents' deaths? Any concrete knowledge of who killed them? I was 7 years old. So you have no testimony to offer, no proof, only digital records that Alpha King Thorne's people conveniently discovered. Edmund addressed the council again. I move that we table these accusations pending independent investigation. And I further move that Elara Hayes be placed in neutral council custody until we can verify her claims about her bloodline and determine whether the Alpha King's protection of her constitutes appropriate use of authority. That is unnecessary, Dominic said flatly. Is it? You have demonstrated clear personal investment in this girl. The council has a right to conduct independent evaluation. Edmund's voice hardened. Unless you believe your authority supersedes council oversight? The chamber erupted in argument. Some council members supported Edmund's motion. Others opposed it, voices rising as the political divisions became apparent. Elara watched in growing horror as approximately half the council sided with Edmund, their expressions suggesting they genuinely believed Dominic had overstepped his authority. The motion fails, Dominic declared, his tone brooking no argument. Elara remains under my protection. This council will conduct a proper investigation into Edmund's activities, but she will not be surrendered to anyone. Then you confirm what I suspected. Edmund's expression remained calm. Your judgment is compromised. This council will remember that. The meeting dissolved into chaos. As Elara left with Dominic, Marcus, and Vivian, she could hear the arguments continuing behind them. Half of them support him, Vivian said quietly, once they were back in the vehicle. Edmund has been building political capital for years. They trust him. Then we need to give them something they cannot ignore. Dominic's jaw was set. We need Sienna Cross in custody, on record, confirming Edmund's involvement. Back at the penthouse, Marcus worked through the night, using the financial records to trace Sienna's likely locations. Elara sat with Vivian, unable to sleep, her mind replaying Edmund's cold assessment and the way he had turned her existence into a political weapon against Dominic. He is right about one thing, Elara said quietly. Dominic has taken risks for me, put himself in a difficult position with the council. Maybe I should... Do not finish that sentence. Vivian's tone was sharp. If you are thinking about leaving to make things easier for him, you are an idiot. I do not want to be the reason he loses authority. You are not. Edmund is threatened by what you represent. A surviving Silvercrest with legitimate claim to heritage and power. If you reclaim your family's legacy, you become a counterbalance to Edmund's influence. That is why he wants you in council custody, where he can control the narrative around you. Vivian leaned forward. You want to help Dominic? Then stop thinking of yourself as a burden and start thinking of yourself as an alpha. I do not know how to be an alpha. Neither did Dominic when he first took leadership. Neither did I when I accepted my position as his second. You learn by doing. Vivian's expression softened slightly. Your family was powerful, Elara. They stood for something. Edmund worked for 20 years to erase that legacy. Do not let him succeed. The next morning, Marcus found her. I have a location. Sienna has been using a property registered under a false identity, about 2 hours north. Dominic wants to move on it tonight. To capture her? To give her a choice. Testify against Edmund or face judgment for 17 counts of murder. Marcus hesitated. You do not have to come. This will be dangerous. She killed my parents. Elara's voice was steady. I am coming. That afternoon, Elara trained harder than ever, preparing herself physically and mentally for what lay ahead. Dominic found her in the training room as evening approached, watching her run through combat forms. Vivian says you have been here for 4 hours. I need to be ready. Elara completed the sequence, then turned to face him. At the council meeting, Edmund said your judgment was compromised because of me. Is that true? Edmund says whatever serves his interests. That is not an answer. Dominic crossed the training floor, stopping a few feet away. My judgment is clear. I know exactly what I am doing and why. Edmund wants you to doubt that, wants you to believe you are a weakness I cannot afford. Do not give him that satisfaction. But the council will see the truth once we present them with testimony they cannot dismiss. Tonight, we get that testimony. His amber eyes held hers. You have become stronger in these weeks. More confident. That is the woman Edmund fears, not the frightened girl who collapsed during the blood moon. Elara felt warmth spread through her chest, that strange connection she had been trying to ignore growing stronger. She opened her mouth to respond, but Marcus appeared in the doorway. We leave in 30 minutes. Vivian is prepping the vehicles. As they prepared for the operation, Elara caught Dominic watching her with an expression she could not quite read, something intense and focused, aware of her in a way that made her skin feel too sensitive. She wondered if he felt it too, this pull between them that grew stronger each day, despite all the logical reasons to resist it. But there was no time to explore that now. Tonight, they would confront Sienna Cross. Tonight, they would get the truth, and Elara would face the woman who had murdered her family. 3 days after the council meeting, they moved on Sienna's location. The warehouse district sprawled across the northern industrial sector, a maze of abandoned buildings and rusted machinery left over from the city's manufacturing past. Marcus had traced Sienna to a property registered under a shell company, a converted storage facility with reinforced security. Elara crouched beside Dominic on the rooftop of an adjacent building, watching their target through the gathering dusk. Her heart pounded with a mixture of anticipation and dread. Somewhere inside that warehouse was the woman who had murdered her parents. 2 guards on the east entrance, 3 on the west. Marcus reported through the comm unit, his voice crackling in Elara's ear. Thermal imaging shows at least 8 bodies inside the main space. More than we expected, Vivian said from her position on the opposite rooftop. This feels wrong. Dominic's expression was grim. We proceed carefully. First sign of a trap, we pull back. They descended in coordinated silence, splitting into 2 teams. Elara stayed with Dominic, both of them shifting into wolf form as they approached the east entrance. The guards never saw them coming. Dominic took down the first with brutal efficiency, while Elara used her smaller size to slip past the second, her jaws finding his throat before he could raise an alarm. The warehouse interior was vast and dimly lit, support beams casting long shadows across concrete floors. Elara's enhanced senses picked up multiple scents, bodies moving in the darkness ahead. They advanced cautiously, Marcus and Vivian entering from the opposite side. Welcome, Alpha King. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, echoing through the space. Lights blazed to life, temporarily blinding Elara. When her vision adjusted, she saw Sienna Cross standing on a raised platform at the center of the warehouse. She was exactly as Marcus had described, red hair pulled back severely, cold brown eyes, athletic build wrapped in tactical gear. Around her, at least 15 rogues emerged from concealment, forming a perimeter. This was not a hideout. It was an ambush. Edmund sends his regards, Sienna continued, her smile sharp and predatory. Did you really think your digital investigation was subtle? He has known about your digging for weeks. He just needed you to find me so he could eliminate multiple problems at once. Fall back, Dominic ordered through the pack bond, but the entrances were already sealed, metal doors slamming down with mechanical precision. The rogues attacked from all sides. Elara barely had time to register the movement before she was fighting for her life, teeth and claws finding targets as chaos erupted around her. These were not the disorganized attackers from the penthouse. These rogues moved as a unit, trained and coordinated, pressing their advantage through sheer numbers. Elara felt a blade slice across her shoulder and yelped, spinning to face her attacker. She caught him with her hind legs, sending him sprawling, then leaped at another who was advancing on Marcus's exposed flank. Blood filled her mouth, copper and hot, and some distant part of her mind registered that she should be horrified by the violence. Instead, her wolf reveled in it. Through the chaos, she tracked Sienna moving along the platform, circling toward the western side, where Vivian fought 3 rogues simultaneously. Elara broke away from her own fight, racing across the warehouse floor, her paws finding purchase on a stack of crates that let her launch herself at the platform. Sienna turned at the last second, drawing a knife and slashing at Elara's exposed throat. Elara twisted midair, taking the blade across her ribs instead, pain exploding through her side. She crashed into Sienna, and they both went down in a tangle of limbs and fur. "You are Nathan's daughter," Sienna said, shoving Elara off her and getting to her feet. "I see him in your eyes." Elara shifted back to human form, ignoring her nakedness and the blood streaming down her side. "You killed him. You killed both of them. I did my job." Sienna circled her, knife still in hand. "Your parents were obstacles to a necessary political shift. Nothing personal." "Nothing personal?" Rage burned through Elara's chest, hotter than anything she had felt before. "You murdered my family, stole my childhood, my heritage, everything I should have been, and turned you into this." Sienna gestured at her. "A survivor, a fighter. You should thank me." The rage ignited into something else. Elara felt power surge through her body, the elemental magic responding to her fury with devastating force. Silver blue energy erupted from her hands, a massive wave that Sienna barely managed to dodge. The platform shattered where the energy struck, metal twisting and concrete exploding into fragments. Sienna's eyes widened with genuine fear. She shifted into wolf form, red fur bristling, and lunged at Elara with desperate speed. But Elara met her mid-leap, her own shift completing in a heartbeat, and they collided in a savage exchange of teeth and claws. Across the warehouse, Dominic fought through multiple opponents to reach them. Elara felt his presence through that connection she had been trying to ignore, felt him moving in perfect synchronization with her own rhythm. When Sienna tried to circle behind her, Dominic was already there, cutting off the escape. When a rogue tried to interfere, Elara intercepted without conscious thought, protecting Dominic's flank as naturally as breathing. They moved like two parts of a whole, anticipating each other's actions, covering weaknesses, amplifying strengths. It felt inevitable and terrifying and absolutely right. Together, they cornered Sienna against the warehouse wall. She was bleeding from multiple wounds, her movement slowing, red fur matted with blood. Elara shifted back to human form, drawing on her elemental power to pin Sienna in place with bands of shimmering energy. "You are coming with us," Dominic said, also shifting back. "You are going to tell the council everything Edmund paid you to do. And if I refuse?" Sienna's voice was pained but defiant. "Then you die here," Elara said quietly. "You murdered 17 people, including my parents. I would be within my rights to end you." Something flickered in Sienna's eyes. "But you will not. I can see it. You are too soft, too human still." "No." Elara stepped closer, letting Sienna see the wolf looking out through her human eyes. "I am Silvercrest, and I am offering you a choice my parents never got. Testify against Edmund and accept exile, or face execution for your crimes." Sienna stared at her for a long moment, then laughed bitterly. "You really are Nathan's daughter. He always believed in mercy, too. It got him killed. Is that a yes? Take me to your council. I will tell them everything." The trip back to the city was tense. Sienna restrained in the back of their vehicle, her wounds treated enough to keep her stable. Marcus drove while Vivian kept watch on their prisoner. Elara sat beside Dominic in the front passenger seat, awareness of his proximity making her skin feel electric. "That was incredible," he said quietly. "The way we fought together. I have never experienced anything like that. I knew where you would be before you moved." Elara admitted. "Like I could feel your intentions. That is the mate bond." Dominic's voice was careful. "It has been building between us for weeks. What happened tonight, that synchronization, it only occurs between true mates." Elara's breath caught. She had suspected, but hearing him say it made it real. "I thought you were resisting it, keeping distance. I was trying to let you choose freely, without pressure from the bond or gratitude for protection." His amber eyes met hers. "But after tonight, after feeling that connection, I cannot pretend anymore." Back at Dominic's territory, they convened an emergency session with 3 neutral council members. individuals who had not aligned clearly with either Dominic or Edmund during the previous meeting. Sienna, cleaned up and bandaged but still clearly wounded, sat in a chair surrounded by guards. With the council members recording every word, Sienna provided detailed testimony. She described Edmund's approach 20 years ago, his offer of money and protection in exchange for eliminating Silvercrest descendants. She listed every contract, every killing, including Nathan and Isabel Silvercrest. She provided account numbers, meeting locations, communications that corroborated Marcus's digital evidence. Why did Edmund want the Silvercrest eliminated? One council member asked. Political consolidation. The Silvercrest line held significant territory and influence. They were traditional rivals to Edmund's ambitions. With them gone, he faced less organized opposition to his agenda. Sienna met Elara's gaze. Your parents were not the first, but Edmund wanted them dead most of all. Nathan Silvercrest was positioning himself as a major voice on the council. He would have blocked Edmund's plans. The testimony lasted 3 hours. When it concluded, the council members looked shaken. This is irrefutable, one of them said. Edmund Graves will be arrested immediately. But when they dispatched enforcers to Edmund's residence, they found it empty. He had fled, taking several loyalists with him. Marcus pulled Dominic aside with grim news while the council members departed. Edmund anticipated this. He has been moving resources, gathering allies. My sources indicate he is planning a direct assault on your territory. When? Soon. Possibly within days. They sent Sienna to the border under armed escort that night, her exile enforced with the understanding that if she ever returned, she would be executed. Elara watched the vehicle disappear into darkness, feeling a strange mixture of satisfaction and emptiness. Justice had been served, but her parents were still gone. It is over, Vivian said gently. Not yet. Elara turned back toward the building. Edmund is still out there. Inside, Dominic was organizing defenses, pulling in loyal pack members, fortifying the territory against attack. Elara watched him work, his authority absolute, his focus complete. When he finally finished and the others dispersed, they stood alone in his office. You should rest, he said. You were wounded tonight. So were you. Elara crossed the space between them. Dominic, earlier you said you could not pretend anymore. Neither can I. He went very still. Elara, I feel it. The bond. Every time you are near, every time I think you might be in danger, it tears at me. She met his eyes. I know this is complicated. I know there are political implications, but I need you to tell me honestly. Do you feel it too? Yes. The word came out rough. From the moment I caught you during the blood moon, I felt the pull. I have been fighting it because I did not want you to feel obligated, did not want the bond to make your choices for you. I choose this. Elara closed the remaining distance, her hand finding his chest, feeling his heartbeat accelerate under her palm. I choose you. The bond snapped into place with devastating completeness, a connection so profound it felt like her soul had found its missing piece. Dominic pulled her against him, and when his mouth found hers, Elara felt herself ignite. They barely made it to his bedroom. Clothes disappeared in desperate urgency, and when Dominic laid her on his bed, Elara saw the same overwhelming need reflected in his amber eyes. The mate bond sang between them as their bodies joined, a completion that was both physical and spiritual. Afterward, wrapped in his arms, Elara felt the bond settle into a steady presence in her chest, warm and constant. What happens now? Now we face whatever comes together. Dominic pressed a kiss to her forehead. Edmund will attack. We will be ready. And after you reclaim your heritage, you rebuild Silvercrest, and we figure out how two alphas lead side by side. Elara smiled against his chest. That sounds complicated. Probably. She could hear the smile in his voice. But I have never backed down from a challenge. Neither had she. Not anymore. 2 days after the mate bond completed, Edmund struck at dawn. Alarms shattered the early morning quiet, and Elara woke to Dominic already moving, throwing on clothes and reaching for his phone. Through the windows, she could see smoke rising from the southern perimeter of the territory. He is here, Marcus said through the comm system, his voice tight with urgency. "Multiple entry points. This is not a raid. It is a full assault." Elara dressed quickly, her wolf already pushing forward in anticipation of battle. She followed Dominic down to the command center where Marcus had set up operations, screens displaying security feeds from across the territory. What she saw made her stomach drop. Edmund had brought an army. Dozens of fighters poured through breached defenses on 3 sides, moving in organized units. These were not rogues but trained mercenaries, shifters loyal to Edmund through money or ideology, equipped with weapons and tactical gear. "South Sector is taking the heaviest hits," Vivian reported, already in tactical clothing. "Residential buildings. We have civilians sheltering in place." "Marcus, coordinate evacuation protocols," Dominic ordered. "Get non-combatants to the safe rooms. Vivian, take your unit and reinforce the eastern breach. I will command the main defense." "Where do you need me?" Elara asked. Dominic turned to her, and she saw the conflict in his expression. He wanted to keep her safe, wanted to send her to the shelters with the other non-combatants. But they both knew she was not a civilian anymore. "South Sector," he said finally. "Keep them from reaching the residential buildings. Use your elemental abilities. We need the advantage." Elara shifted as she ran, her wolf form covering ground faster than human legs could manage. She reached the southern perimeter within minutes, finding it already engulfed in chaos. Edmund's forces had broken through the initial defenses and were advancing on apartment buildings where families had taken shelter. She did not hesitate. Silver-blue energy gathered in her chest and exploded outward in a directed wave, catching the advancing fighters and throwing them backward. The ones who remained standing turned to face her, and Elara saw recognition in their eyes. They knew what she was, knew the power she carried. Good. Let them fear Silvercrest. The battle became a blur of movement and violence. Elara fought with everything Vivian had taught her, using her speed and agility to stay ahead of opponents, her elemental magic to control the battlefield. When 3 fighters tried to flank her, she summoned a barrier of energy that sent them crashing into walls. When one got too close with a blade, her jaws found his throat before he could swing. Pack members rallied around her, taking courage from her presence. Together, they held the southern sector, preventing Edmund's forces from advancing further. Elara lost track of time, focused only on the next threat, the next attacker, the steady rhythm of defense. Across the bond, she felt Dominic fighting with equal intensity, his presence a constant anchor in her awareness. When his section faced overwhelming numbers, she felt his strain. When he broke through a difficult position, she felt his triumph. They were separated by distance, but connected by something far stronger. The sun climbed higher, and the fighting continued without pause. Elara's body ached with exhaustion, her elemental reserves depleting with each use, but she refused to yield ground. Behind her, the residential building stood intact, the civilians inside protected. Then she felt him, Edmund's presence, cold and focused, moving through the battlefield with purpose. Elara tracked his approach, her wolf's senses locking onto his scent. He emerged from the smoke wearing reinforced armor, his face set in grim determination. "Elara Silvercrest," he called out, his voice carrying across the combat zone. "I challenge you to trial by combat, your life against mine. Let the old laws decide this." The fighting around them slowed, both sides recognizing the formal challenge. Trial by combat was ancient shifter law, binding and absolute. If Elara accepted, she and Edmund would fight alone, and the loser's faction would surrender. "Do not do this," Vivian's voice crackled through the comm unit. "He is trying to eliminate you and discredit Dominic simultaneously. You do not have to accept." But Elara understood what was really happening. Edmund knew he was losing. The testimony from Sienna had destroyed his political credibility, and this assault was his final desperate move. If she refused the challenge, he would paint her as a coward, someone unworthy of the Silvercrest name. If she fought him and lost, he eliminated the last bloodline that threatened him. And if she won, this war ended. "I accept your challenge," Elara said, shifting back to human form. Someone threw her clothes, and she dressed quickly, never taking her eyes off Edmund. A space cleared around them. Elara saw Dominic arrive at the perimeter, his expression tight with concern, but also respect. He knew she had to do this. Through the bond, she felt his absolute faith in her abilities. "Combat to the death," Edmund said. "No interference. Do you agree to the terms?" "I agree." They shifted simultaneously. Edmund's wolf larger and more muscular than hers, gray fur bristling with aggression. He had decades of experience, size and strength advantages, but Elara had something he did not. She had nothing left to lose, and everything to reclaim. Edmund attacked first, using his weight to try to overwhelm her. Elara dodged, using her smaller size exactly as Vivian had taught her, staying mobile, not letting him pin her down. She darted in for quick strikes, her teeth finding purchase in his shoulder, his flank, bleeding him with precision hits. He caught her once, his jaws closing on her back leg, and Elara felt bone crack. Pain exploded through her, but she twisted and raked her claws across his face, forcing him to release her. She limped backward, favoring the injured leg, reassessing. Edmund circled her, blood dripping from the wounds she had inflicted. "You fight well for someone so young, but experience wins battles." He lunged again, and this time Elara did not dodge. She met him head-on, channeling every ounce of elemental power she had left into the collision. Silver-blue energy erupted between them, and Edmund yelped as the magic seared his fur, burned his skin. Elara pressed the advantage, driving him backward, her teeth finding his throat. He threw her off with desperate strength, and they separated, both breathing hard. Elara's leg throbbed with agony, her elemental reserves nearly depleted. But Edmund was worse, burns covering his body, his movements slowing. "You murdered my parents," Elara said, her wolf's voice coming out as a growl. "You tried to erase my entire bloodline. This ends now." The final exchange was brutal and swift. Edmund came at her with everything he had left, but Elara was ready. She ducked under his attack and came up inside his guard, her jaws clamping down on his throat with devastating force. She felt his pulse hammering against her teeth, felt the moment it began to fade. Edmund went limp. Elara held on until she was certain, until his heart stopped beating entirely, then released him and stepped back. His body shifted back to human form in death, eyes staring sightlessly at the morning sky. The silence that followed was absolute. Then Edmund's forces began dropping their weapons, the formal surrender required by the challenge Edmund himself had issued. The battle was over. Council members who had been present to witness the challenge came forward, including the 3 neutral members who had recorded Sienna's testimony. "Elara Silvercrest," one of them announced formally, "you have prevailed in trial by combat. By ancient law and the evidence of your bloodline's power, we recognize you as the legitimate alpha of the Silvercrest line." Elara shifted back to human form, accepting clothes someone handed her. Her injured leg nearly buckled, but Dominic was there, supporting her weight, his presence solid and reassuring. "The council also acknowledges," another member continued, "that Edmund Graves engaged in conspiracy, genocide, and treason against shifter law. His death was lawful execution." Over the following hours, Edmund's surviving followers were processed and detained. The territory damage was assessed, wounded treated, and the dead honored. Elara spent time in the medical bay, getting her leg set and healed. Dominic refusing to leave her side. "You were incredible," he said quietly. "Terrifying and incredible. I was scared the entire time. That is what made it brave." 3 days later, the council convened for a formal session. Elara stood before them wearing clothing that bore the Silvercrest crest, a symbol Marcus had found in archived records, a silver wolf beneath a crescent moon. The chambers were packed with witnesses, pack members from across the region coming to observe. "The Silvercrest bloodline is formally restored," the council leader announced. "Elara Silvercrest holds the rights and territories historically belonging to her family, as well as the authority to rebuild her pack." Dominic stepped forward. "I propose a formal alliance between the Thorne and Silvercrest lines. Through the mate bond that exists between myself and Elara, I suggest a unified territory with shared leadership." 2 alphas, equal in authority, governing together. The proposal was unprecedented, but after witnessing Elara's strength and the corruption that nearly destroyed their society, the council was ready for change. After brief deliberation, they approved the new structure. The mating ceremony took place a week later, conducted according to traditional shifter customs. Both the Thorne pack and the rebuilding Silvercrest faction attended, along with council members and allied packs. Elara wore silver, Dominic wore black, and when they completed the ritual bonding, she felt the mate connection solidify into something permanent and unbreakable. 3 months passed in a blur of activity. Elara threw herself into rebuilding her family's legacy, reaching out to shifters without pack affiliation, offering them a place in Silvercrest. Her pack grew slowly but steadily, individuals drawn by her reputation and the promise of the values she represented, strength balanced with mercy, justice without cruelty. She visited Gregory Hayes once in the detention facility, where he served his sentence for conspiracy. He looked older, diminished, and when he apologized again, Elara found she could accept it without the burning anger she once felt. He had made terrible choices, but he had also kept her alive when killing her would have been easier. That was worth something. Dominic adapted to shared leadership with surprising ease, consulting Elara on major decisions, respecting her authority over Silvercrest matters while she respected his over Thorne affairs. They governed together, and their combined strength reshaped shifter politics throughout the region. On a cool evening in late winter, Elara stood on the balcony of the penthouse they now officially shared, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. Dominic joined her, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How different everything is from 4 months ago. I was human then, or thought I was. I had no idea who I really was. And now? Now I know exactly who I am." Elara leaned back against his chest, feeling his heartbeat through the bond they shared. "I am Silvercrest. I am Alpha. I am your mate. And I am finally home." Dominic pressed a kiss to her temple. "Yes, you are." Below them, their combined territory stretched out in the darkness, protected and thriving. Elara had reclaimed her heritage, found her strength, and discovered a love she never expected. The journey from that collapsed girl during the blood moon to the Alpha she had become was complete. And whatever challenges the future held, she would face them with Dominic at her side and her pack at her back. The Silvercrest line had returned, and it would never be erased again.